Listen, I've been reading the comments and I feel it too. It is very difficult for me to do the tech videos that I'm comfortable with the tech videos that I'm used to without a table. I've been doing this for 6 years at this point, right? But I just want to get away from the table if I can. We'll see how that plays out. But today we're wheeling in this workbench, and this is what we'll use as a temporary table. So today we're talking about the ZenFone 8 and the ZenFone 8 Flip. Now, a few months ago, there were rumors that there was a mini ZenFone of some sort coming out. It turns out that's just the regular ZenFone 8, and then the ZenFone 8 Flip is the one with the flippy mechanism. So we'll talk about this in a second, but when I first pulled this thing out of the box, the regular ZenFone 8, I was surprised. I was almost disappointed because the iconic flippy camera system that has been around for the past 2 years was gone, at least on this one. And I was like, why is Asus making a generic phone? Like, why are they making something that seemingly everyone else has something very similar to? But it turns out this is actually pretty special. So this phone has a lot of the top tier components in it. It's got a Snapdragon 888, it's got UFS 3.1 storage, it's a very fast phone, but what it does really well is the fundamentals. It gets all of the necessities down just right. So it's a very small phone. It's a 5.9-inch screen, but it's a comfortable one-handed phone. And there's actually not a lot of devices out there right now that we can do that whole one-handed reachability. We can stretch across the width of the screen with one finger. It's something I appreciate. It's obviously not everyone's jam, but I like it. And it's kind of like the Pixel 5, but this is actually a narrower screen than the Pixel 5. There's also the return of the headphone jack, which is something I personally love seeing. They removed it last year, and I think on a device like this that is as well-rounded and as complete of a package as this is, if they didn't put this in, it would have been such a mistake. So I'm glad that it's there. It also has the weirdest thing, amazing speakers. So I'm used to small phones having not just bad speakers, but just like discrepant speakers where like the left side or the right side is louder or quieter just because it's a small phone. You kind of expect it to have less room in there to put big speakers. No, dude, this thing is awesome. I don't know how they did it. This is a smaller phone with possibly one of the best speakers I've heard outside of a gaming phone. These are incredible. They're not super loud, but they're clear. And they have good stereo separation. They're clearly taking notes from their ROG phone line. The battery in here is 4,000 milliamp hours. It's not huge. It's relatively big considering the size of the phone, but their marketing material made it seem like at 4,000 milliamp hours, they're like breaking records or something. It's a big-ish battery, but battery life isn't super special either. I'm getting like 6 hours of screen on time, and there's also 30-watt fast charging capabilities with this device, and it's included in the box. Now, what is kind of special though is that they were able to combine a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, so large-ish, in a smaller package with a high-end SoC. So normally, I'm just going to use the Pixel 5 as an example. If you have a small package like this or a smaller package like this, and you want to stuff a big battery in there, it's a lot easier to do that when you have a low-end SoC because you don't have to run as much copper piping and materials in there to wick that heat away, right? Something like this device, that 888 gets hot. So the ability to pull that heat away properly, effectively, while leaving enough space in there for a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, that's commendable. So I think if you want that full round package, like powerful, big battery, and small, that's what this guy does. It also has a fantastic screen. So it's a 1080p panel, but it's 120 hertz and very responsive, very fast, but it's a little bit taller than you might expect. Like the aspect ratio is 20:9, and it's just, you know, a bit of a vertical stretch if that's something that's important to you. There's also more prominent black sidebars in videos if you don't zoom in, but the screen overall is fantastic. Now the bezels are a little bit thicker than some other devices out there, but I feel like it's so worth it, right? By having bigger bezels like this, they're able to put a much more powerful speaker system behind it, and I feel like it's completely worth the trade-off for me. Like if you want super thin bezels, you just can't have good speakers in there. Right? It's just gonna have anemic sounds. This is the move. Now, the camera system is using the same sensors as last year's model, the ZenFone 7 Pro, but it doesn't do the flip, obviously. This is just a rear-mounted camera system, but it's a very generic-looking phone now. There's not a lot of features in the back that really identify it. It shoots nice, though. The dynamic range is up there on the main sensor, the IMX686. The ultra-wide sensor isn't as good on dynamic range or as sharp, but for both lenses, the colors are good and the low light is actually quite good. I feel like Asus's software can sometimes be a little aggressive with brightening the image, and sometimes it overexposes shots, but in general, I think this camera system is very good. I actually don't think people need to install third-party stuff like Gcam because the stock camera app is on point. It doesn't have a zoom, if that's something you're looking for, but the camera system is solid. Now, a quick note about the color on the back of this device. It's a matte black glass. It's Gorilla Victus, so it's strong glass. But this is a really nice finish. It's a nice color, and to me, it looks almost identical to the one on the S21 Ultra, the one that they called Phantom Black, and they did like a 10-minute presentation of what made that black so special. This is the same thing to me. It's like very, very similar. But if you like that color, you like that finish, you're gonna like this one. It's just not called Phantom Black, I'm sure. Okay, so there's also this blue button on the side that looks really cool against this black finish. And there's no wireless charging, and there's also no micro SD if that's something that you're dependent on. But overall, I think this phone fits so many people's wish lists. Like it does so much stuff right at a very reasonable price. I think it's like $600-700, but if you're in the market for something that's small but feature packed, definitely check out this phone. Now, there's two concerns that I think people have when it comes to ZenFone devices. Number one is the bands. So I'm going to put it in the description, like all the available bands on this device, but there's also the issue of availability. I asked them, like, is this going to be a device that's available in higher quantities than previous devices? Because on ZenFone 6 and even parts of ZenFone 7, you couldn't get this device no matter how hard you tried. It was weird. It was like sold out everywhere. But they said they've improved their kind of method of getting this thing out globally, but we'll have to see. So that's the ZenFone 8. I think this is a really cool and really well-designed small phone. Way better than I thought it would be when I pulled it out of the box because I just didn't realize what this thing was packing. Okay, I'm going to move on to the ZenFone 8 Flip. Now this phone is more in line with what I thought a ZenFone would be. You know, big, large, flippy camera system. Not a lot has changed in this device from last year's ZenFone 7 Pro. It's kind of strange to me, and I'll talk about it in a little bit, but the concern that I have is more about the why. Like, why did they move away from this design and this kind of form factor with the flippy camera to something that is so not ZenFone? And I don't have an answer for that, obviously, but it just feels strange to me, and it worries me thinking that this product line or this kind of product innovation with the camera system is gonna disappear in a year or two or more. Like, it's just strange that they would separate it like this, and I don't want it to. Now, personally, I don't use this camera system, but I feel like it was a great idea that I think a lot of people appreciate. Like, you get this full front screen with no notches or bezels or any kind of obstructions, and it's kind of sad to see that the main hero device this year being sold globally is the regular ZenFone 8 and not the Flip. Because I really liked the Flip. It was unique. And as consumers, it was cool to see companies try stuff like that. This feels more like a safety pick, right? It feels like, I mean, it's a good phone, but it just feels like this was like, you know, they could look on a chart and be like, what's the mathematical best option for building a phone that can sell? And this would be it, but it just feels less innovative in that sense. So I'm disappointed that they did this. I hope it's not like some kind of foreshadowing that they're going to dump this camera over time. But ZenFone 8 Flip. So just like the ZenFone 7 Pro from last year, it does the flip in the camera system, but the images are actually quite similar between this year's model and the 7 Pro from last year. It's just some minor tweaks in software. The overall phone is actually quite similar. In fact, like, it's aside from the SoC being upgraded to the Snapdragon 888, there's actually very, very few differences. There is the removal of that side-mounted fingerprint sensor, and it's now in display, just like the ZenFone 8, but it doesn't have an improved speaker system, which I was assuming they would, right? If they could put those great speakers into that small phone, I thought they'd put them in here as well, but these sound just like the old one. This just seems like a slightly updated version of the 7 Pro from last year for the people that really enjoy this form factor. But that's it. That's the ZenFone 8 and the ZenFone 8 Flip on this rolling table that I pulled in for you guys. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. I'll see you guys next time.